Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi here at the Business Today studio at GoaFest, and joining me now, two big guests. Ashwin Padmanabhan, a former colleague of sorts in some ways.
Hi, Siddharth.
He is currently the president for investments, trading and partnerships at GroupM India. And with him, Pankaj Krishna, the founder of Chrome DM. They measure and analyze all manner of media-related data. Thank you very much for being here. Ashwin, I'm going to start by asking you to talk about, your own experience as a media buyer of decades, and you've done sort of varied roles. What's changed in the recent past? Because one of the key things that I've been picking up through multiple conversations is advertising media in the post-COVID world after peak digital. Relate your experience and tell us what is the current big trend looking like.
The way I see it, the challenge that we face is the challenge that our clients face. And what is the challenge our clients face? Today, we all, in fact, we're all consumers, right? We all as consumers don't have an undivided attention on anything. Today, if you have to find any one of us or anybody else outside, you need to find different places in which you connect with them and try and have a conversation with them. So the challenge for a client of ours today is
how do
I get to a consumer and have a conversation with the consumer, because I can't find them in those defined places that I could earlier.
Yes.
They are scattered all over the place. And that challenge translates into an agency's challenge, because now the agency has to be able to build a story of how do you get to a consumer, how do you measure that you have reached that consumer, and how do you put a cost to reaching that consumer through that medium, how do you define it as effective. So it has actually become terribly complicated.
And is technology helping handle part of that complication?
I would say it does both. It adds to the complication and it helps as well, right? Technology allows a consumer to, access content anywhere, anytime, on any kind of a device. But that adds to the challenge that we have of being able to track them, right? The reality is that the technology which allows a consumer to consume content in different ways at different points in time in different devices, that technology has moved fast. The technology to track that consumer and drive measurement has not kept pace.
Pankaj, you agree with that?
I completely agree with Ashwin, and that's the reason why we are in business. So, but thank you, Sid. It's always good to see you. As far as measurement is concerned, valid point. It is a challenge. Multiple devices, and as Ashwin rightly said, attention span and clutter, they go hand in hand, which is happening at this point in time. But then the beauty of digital, Siddharth, is the fact that it is hardware independent. So if you want to measure digital, you need to insert a simple application on the device, as long as it does not violate any privacy laws, and you get the return path data is what you call. So that is happening to a great extent. We are doing that. We are currently measuring the reach of live content on cable and satellite, and the incremental reach of that same content on multiple devices. So browsers, mobile phones, connected devices. Right now it is sample based, but the sample itself is strongly indicative because it's bigger than the rating sample as we speak of it now. Parallelly, the same data gets valid with census based data. So census-based data would be something like YouTube. So you got millions and millions, you got some 2 billion or 2.3 billion global subscribers. So you know exactly how many people are watching you live now. That is in the public domain. So if you use that data as well, you come out at a very strong indicator.
Pankaj, since you measure a lot of this data, there are some latest numbers that you have put out. Can you take our viewers through those numbers and what they really mean?
Yeah. So if you look at the internet connectivity, it splits across browsers. So a laptop or a computer that you use at home, that currently, as per estimates of April 2023, stands at 223 million independent connections. Mobile devices are at 619 million. That is 61 crores. That's about half the population, slightly below half the population. Connected TVs is the fastest growing device at this point in time. So, a connected TV is any device which is smart television which has an internet connection. That is currently at about 22 million. The
At
interesting.
what rate of growth? Do you have that data as well?
Yeah, I don't have the
I think
data with
because
me.
the base isn't really big. Is 22 million
So-
a big base?
So,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think probably I can add to what you're saying.
Ah.
If you look at the TV shipments,
Huh.
today 65% of all TVs shipped are smart TVs.
Okay.
And this 22 odd million is actually the broadband base today,
Okay.
right? So from a device perspective,
Huh.
that growth is at a 40% year on year.
Okay.
So it's a phenomenal growth. From a connectivity perspective, it is dependent on broadband availability,
Yes.
right? Now, which is where there's a lot of growth that happened during the pandemic with 5G broadband, as in broadband coming through fiber into homes across
Yes.
the top cities.
Right.
Now, that fiber is actually reaching even the smaller towns.
Right.
Apart from that, with the launch of 5G, you actually will have 5G dongles, which will give you wireless broadband into homes, which will help you take this number significantly up. So, like GroupM has got a product for CTV called Finecast. And our projection on CTV is that, connected TV devices is that the 22 odd million right now should grow to about 45 million by end of 25.
End of 25, 45 million, more than a double. And what does that mean in terms of, media buying decisions? Is it going to make a big dent in decision making?
Actually, if you look at it, and again, for you, this is one more challenge, right? Today, we look at Bark as a source of truth for TV. But the reality is, when I'm watching content as a consumer on television, the distribution of that content could be through cable, could be through satellite, and now through internet.
Yes.
It is still TV. So when I'm investing in media, which is being displayed on a screen, which is called TV, I'm buying TV. But the measurement principles today for cable and satellite and measurement principle for CTV are different. So being able to build a unified measurement principle which goes across CTV and television, and for us to be able to do a TV plus planning.
So
Is
what
the
is
challenge.
lacking? What is lacking? Since
I
Pankaj.
think Ashwin is giving me the cue for what I wanted to talk about.
Huh.
And for a fact, Siddharth probably not only Ashwin is giving me a cue of what I wanted to talk about. For that matter, in fact, what you would also want me to talk about, since
Yeah.
you come from the India Today group. I'll give you an example of incremental reach. The cable and satellite reach which Bark addresses, and I'll give you an example of Aaj Tak. Let's take Aaj Tak, which is part of your group. Aaj Tak stands at 225 million people who watch the channel at least for a minute. This is April data across 30 days.
225 million?
Individuals watched Aaj Tak at least for a minute in the month of April, which is a substantially strong number. The digital reach, which is consumption outside of cable and satellite, which is either mobile or browser or connected TV, stands at 115 million. So the maths is very interesting for you to do, Sid. 115 million through digital, 225 through linear. So the incremental reach, which is 115 divided by 225, is more than 50%.
Okay.
So if you are actually getting 50% additional deliveries if the same content was to run on digital as well.
So we're probably getting into some technical angles of planning
Yes.
here right now. But one of the things that we are doing is building a planning tool, which allows us to take the reach curves of TV, take the reach curves of different platforms that we access through CTV, and to be able to build this incremental reach story. So you have a reach curve of YouTube, you have the reach curve of terrestrial television or cable and satellite television that comes into the planning tool, and then you're able to say, what is the incremental reach do I get by adding that CTV line in the plan?
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
So I think it's an evolving ecosystem. The reality is that the basic challenge of a marketer is only becoming more and more complex.
It's becoming more and more complex, and there's a lot of chatter, Ashwin, about print and linear television going down. in spends versus digital and OTT. A lot of large players are still sort of patronizing both. What are your views on how the future of media spends is going to be, minus the short-term sort of blips we may see, as we have perhaps seen in the past quarter or few months? What is the longer-term trend in this regard?
See, the reality is that digital spends have overtaken all other mediums 2 years ago. So digital is the largest medium as far as advertising spends are concerned. It is close to about 51% of all advertising that gets invested today. 51%.
51%.
Yeah. So digital is about 51%. So it is bigger than all other mediums put together now. That has happened. But does it mean that there is going to be a continuous drop in the spends on other mediums? I think different mediums are reacting differently. If you look at newsprint dramatically dropped during COVID because of a lot of reasons. But newsprint has actually made a comeback, especially in vernacular.
Okay.
And today, a lot of our partner publications with whom we work very closely, who publish in the regions in multiple languages outside of English, they actually have gone back to 2019 levels. In some cases, even better than 2019 in terms of advertising revenues.
Okay.
Interesting. Look at radio. Radio is not a relevant medium for most of us as consumers or listeners in metro markets anymore. But you go into a small town, radio is flourishing. You'll tune into a radio station today in a small town like Banaras, and you will see 15 to 20 minutes of advertising on the radio station today.
Okay.
You'll hear that.
Well, that's very interesting, because I thought in the metros we were caught in traffic and therefore we were listening to a lot of...
See, that was one of the biggest myths of radio, which I've spent demystifying many, many years.
Yeah.
That radio, actually 75% of listening actually happened at home.
Not in the car.
Not in the car. Right?
Wow, fascinating insights. Fascinating. Pankaj, you want to...
Yeah, so there are two ways to look at it. Both print and television, the relative growth is lesser than that of digital. So you can call it declining. But if you look at the absolute numbers, everything is growing.
Absolutely.
Everything is growing.
Everything is growing. So number of people who used to read newspapers 5 years back, or the number of people who read it now, are more than what they used to read 5 years back.
Then is there a demographic dividend at play here? The fact that India is still a growing country, that you have 45% of a certain age profile, which is still coming up.
Newspapers, I think itself, for an example, is a very interesting case study, because when television came, people said print is done. Why would you read news that happened yesterday, printed in the night, delivered to me in the morning, and I take it to the washroom at like 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, where I get breaking news on my phone? But print still continues. I think all of these factors are consumer habit driven. It's a habit. And it remains true that, you've got fantastic mediums to read books digitally on a mobile phone, but given a choice, Siddharth, you'll take a book and sit by the poolside and read on a paper. Right? It's just a different experience. So that's all it's about. So I don't think any medium is dying. Cable and satellite, again, very interesting point. And I say this example a lot. It's about my mom. She's got a smart TV, but she's still got an Amazon Fire Stick installed on that smart TV, which is weird, because the earlier TV she had was not smart. So she started with an Amazon Fire Stick. She's used to that remote control. Now I've upgraded the TV, but she doesn't want to take the new remote.
Fascinating insight.
And cable and satellite channels, so she would still watch them on a Tata Sky, because it's the remote, it's habit.
Absolutely.
Ashwin, I'm going to... you wanted to...
No, I think I want to just reiterate the point you made. The fact that all mediums are growing, and which is the beauty of the Indian media industry right now, which is very divergent from what we see rest of the world.
And all languages are growing, because, people also say English is no longer the growth market.
See, where it is degrowing is really English.
Oh, really?
Where it is growing is in languages.
Within languages, is there a top three sort of language?
It flows depending on the population and of the languages that are being spoken about.
Okay,
right?
X of Hindi, is it Telugu?
X of Hindi, you will have Marathi, Bangla, Telugu, Tamil as the top four languages.
Okay, X of Hindi. Okay, that's a good one. How does a brand break through today? I read that you spoken about the fact that brands need to start thinking of branded content. I hope I've got you right on that as one of the ways. Expand on that for our viewers.
No, I think brands have tried to create content for many years. And there is this term called AFP that's been used for many years, an advertiser funded program. But the reality is the AFP is the worst way that a brand can create content because you're creating the content for the brand and not for the consumer. So the first principle of creating content is you don't create it for yourself, you create it for the consumer. The second principle then you need to figure out is how can the brand fit in the story and still add to the storytelling and seamlessly engage with the consumer. An AFP is not that. So the way we've looked at branded content is content first and then brand.
Okay.
And versus creating the content and then seeing how do I bring the brand in, the brand becomes the part of the scripting itself so that the storytelling and the brand gel together.
Okay.
They walk together.
Okay.
And the brand becomes a part of the story.
For our viewers to understand this, can you relate an example of actually how
Yeah,
it's done? Because that will make it easier.
Absolutely. So, in fact, the first such pieces of content that we created was actually almost 4 years back, 5 years almost now. We created a series of short films, 5 minutes each, for Mercedes. In fact, you can go on YouTube and check out. If you search for Rushes and Mercedes, you will get these films. These films are the story of 5 adventure sports enthusiasts. One of them is a skydiver. Another is a deep sea enthusiast. He's a deep sea diver. The other one is a dirt bike rider. So like that, there are different adventure sport rider experts. The 5-minute film talks about their story. Every one of them has got their favorite Mercedes model. While they're telling the story, the car is there as a part of the story. And they live it and they drive it while telling the story. The car is not featured as a car ever in the story. Now, why did Mercedes do this? Mercedes at that point in time had made a big shift in their styling because it was a brand which was seen as for somebody who is 40 plus. It was a brand which was fuddy-duddy. But they had changed their styling to make it sharper, younger, sleeker. And we see the Mercedes of today, it is sharper, younger, sleeker.
Absolutely.
But the imagery was not that. The association with adventure sports and the youngsters practicing these sports with the brand was the rub-off they were looking for, right? And the brand lived it. It's actually gone on to be one of the best pieces of branded content they have ever done. Even today, those films are played in the Mercedes headquarters in Germany.
Wow, that's a good one. Okay, let me shift gears as we wind down this conversation. And Pankaj, I'll come to you on that first because I want to talk about the movie business plans of Group M. But this year and practically from today itself, we are counting down to exactly 1 year later, which will be the result of the next general election. So it's going to be a big year for news television. What do you see happening this year as far as news television viewership, reach, engagement? What is going to happen really, Pankaj, this year?
News television is growing, Sid. Let's be very clear about it. If I look at it from a bigger picture, there would be a lot of debates on editorial values.
Okay,
is what people talk about, because a lot of people say the highest rated content on news is non-news. The highest rated shows on an English news channel is non-English, right? So now whether that is right or wrong is subjective. As far as consumption is concerned, as a result of these two examples, consumption is only increasing. Anchors are becoming smarter day by day. News channels are using more and more data to understand how to reach audiences, and they're doing it in a right manner. They're using effective time bands, which time band to run what kind of a story, when to go into a break, what audience to cater, what format. It's all now, it is not on gut. a lot of content is now scientific, and if it is scientific, it will grow the pie. It's as simple as that.
And I know what you're
So
saying.
news, as far as elections are concerned, cricket is concerned, they always rate. They always do well. And with new emerging technologies, better content will only go further.
You want to comment about the news business? We are ultimately a news platform before I come to the entertainment part.
See, the way I've seen news is that it's important to segregate the editorial aspect of creating news, or rather reporting news or commenting on news, and the way it is distributed. I think the way we are consuming news today, again, is multidimensional in terms of devices that we use to consume news. The publishers today who specialize in news have the capability to build credible news, report it credibly. It is important that credibility is actually transferred beyond the restricted mediums of print and television and is also taken onto digital in a big way. Because digital today lacks enough credible sources of news.
So a content factory model originating in the content factory of a television studio, so to say, but being populated, sliced and diced across multiple.
It is important because the publisher has the skill, has the capability, has the experience, which others don't have. But today, everybody is creating news or reporting on news, which creates a lot of, not so credible content being consumed.
Yeah, lots of fake news, and I get your point. But tell me, and we sometimes get to hear this off record, off air. अरे न्यूज में क्या रखा है यार, न्यूज में कुछ नहीं है, एकदम कम हो रहा है और सब कुछ सोशल पे हो रहा है. The point I want you to answer as one of the largest media buyers, how do clients, and I'm not asking for names, look at news as a category for their brand enhancement?
See, as a genre, news is the biggest genre for connecting with male audiences.
Male audiences.
The reality is, even today, news as a genre is heavily skewed on male. And for any brand which is wanting to connect with male audiences, news becomes like the first choice, right? Because general entertainment is a preferred choice to connect with women audiences. And when I think about news, that becomes the preferred genre for connecting with male audiences. So when I'm doing a male focused media plan for any client, news will always feature, right? And there is no way that it will not be there. So it is a very, very important part of the strategy to connect with audiences who are especially men. But when you start thinking about it from a context of distribution, I think it opens up interesting possibilities of connecting with audiences beyond men into women as well. When you start looking at distribution beyond television, beyond print, into digital and other forms.
Okay.
Right? And that is the interesting possibility to expand the audience base and thus the client base as well that news has. Because news is not going anywhere. It's a genre that we are going to live with, die with.
Ashwin, within news, business news, which is where I have earned my bread and butter all my professional life, is again said to be a very small niche and in some ways extremely competitive. It's said that it's not growing yet. And the reason I'm asking you this is that more and more Indians are participating in the stock market. Look at the valuations.
No, actually, you've hit the nail on the head. The role of business news, the way I see it, is not about reporting news. Because I don't need to watch news on television. I get news real time, right, from multiple publishers. But when I watch content on television, let's say business content on television, or I read business content on a newspaper or a magazine, I'm reading it for the depth of inciting and advice that I'm able to actually garner from that piece of content. And you spoke about more and more Indians investing in stock markets, which creates this humongous opportunity for a business-focused publication or a channel to be able to be the trusted advisor for all of these us who are trying to make sense of how to invest in stocks, to make sense of how to take care of our money better. There are very few trusted sources today which do that in a manner where it helps. And I think it's a great opportunity to be able to build those
But
opportunities.
Ashwin, one quick point follow up on that. A lot of people end up following a lot of so-called finfluencers, and I don't mean to disrespect them, but if you sort of go in depth onto that, you realize people are being taken for a ride. How do consumers end up trusting, not trusting well-established brands as much? Why do they even go there?
I think there
Is it the lure of a fast buck?
there are two ways to look at it. One answer is surely what you just said, the lure of a fast buck. Why do recruitment scams happen? Why do SMS scam happen? All of the scams happen, and
Human nature.
That is human nature, right? On the second level, I feel the fact that there are independent individuals, and some of them are trusted, some of them
Absolutely.
have built their credibility.
Yes.
It tells us that there was a vacuum, and there was an opportunity which existed, and I believe it still exists. It is the way we think about content programming on television, which is thought in a very linear and in a live manner versus an advisory manner.
Many years back, it was said that a premium English business news content is sells for far more than general news content. Does that hold true anymore?
I would say news content, yes. Does it delivered in the form of television sell for more? I'm not sure.
Okay.
But news content in English does sell for more.
Okay.
It has more value for sure among certain audiences and certain brands.
Which you
How I distribute that and how is the value enhanced is the question. See, you are a publisher, you are a creator. It shouldn't matter how you're distributing it. You have to distribute it in a manner where it reaches the consumer in the best possible way, and we offer the same opportunity for the advertiser. I think it needs a different thinking, I believe.
absolutely be flexible. Pankaj, tell us about the election year from past years, and also if you want to add to this whole bit about business news and its relevance, because sometimes some questions are asked. You and I have had these discussions in the past offline. Add to this.
Yeah, so election year, coming election, news engagement will only increase. It will increase to a great extent. You will see lots more innovations in terms of how the same content is presented, and you will see lot more speed of how data is presented. As Ashwin rightly said, as you also said, with social media, everyone is a news reporter. Everyone has something to say or the other. There's a lot of fake stuff floating, but credible organizations will come up with more engaging content. As far as business news is concerned, said my friend, as long as you're anchoring business news, that will grow as well.
That's a good one.
Pankaj caught me there. I'm going to wind down this conversation with the final question. And this is you and your movie plans. What really are they? Some 300 crore that you have said you will invest. Is that number right? What are you up to?
So, honestly, it's not. We don't talk about investments really, but the movie investments that we're making are an extension of the content business that we've created over the past 5 years. Which, like I said, what started off as branded content has moved into original content, where brands become a part of it. Some of them brands don't even become a part of it, but platforms license it from us, like they would license it from any studio.
Okay.
But what it does is that it's allowed us to create a business model where we are a partner with the platform in sharing the risks of content production with them, helping them monetize the content better, and we're able to offer our clients better access to exclusive content and better ability to integrate themselves with the content. So it's a win-win for the ecosystem is what we are aiming for. From a movie's perspective, movies have always been a format which have driven the imagination of the country, right? And we were slow to come to it because we didn't feel we were ready for it. But last year, we invested in 7 Marathi movies. The slate is on right now. We hope to go live with the first movie sometime in July, August. And then we have a series of releases going up to the first quarter of next year.
And all Marathi language.
These are 7 Marathi movies. We're also investing in 2 Tamil movies. And there's a bilingual Tamil and Hindi movie that we're doing, which is being actually directed by Gautam Menon. So that's a slate for now. Our appetite is more, but I also acknowledge that we are novices in this industry. I would like to learn before we make more, investments here. I'm being pragmatic about the fact that this is something which may work, may not work. But this is surely something we believe we can add value to the ecosystem of publishers, platforms, and advertisers, like the way we've been able to do it in television and the way we've been able to do it in digital as well.
Fascinating insights, viewers, and I never knew that a media agency, a media buyer like Ashwin here would look at movies like the new frontier, and movies, another passion just like cricket. All the very best, Ashwin, for those
Thank you
plans.
so much,
And
Siddharth.
Pankaj, as always, thank you very much for sharing some of those wonderful numbers. We'll keep engaging with you through what is going to be a very important year for news television.
Always a pleasure, Sid. Always a pleasure.
Thanks both.
Thank
both
you,
of you.
Pankaj.
If you do Hindi or English or Arabic, as far as movie venture, give me a shout.
Absolutely.
Sid and I'll come together.
Okay. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. I had fun. I hope you had too. We'll be back with more. Till then, goodbye.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.